African Americans are actually Jew also. We were the people that Moses freed.
No, 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 no.
Because how could the God of the universe also have a chosen relationship with one small people? It doesn't make sense.
Today, there has been a flood of anti-Semitic activity in recent weeks. Top NBA superstar Kyrie Irving suspended for posting a link to an anti-Semitic film.
And what you're looking at now was a disturbing scene that was captured on a 405 freeway overpass Saturday. That sign read, "Kanye is right about the Jews," referring to his recent anti-Semitic posts. And then hours later, early Sunday morning, is when these flyers were found on driveway doorsteps, car windshields, all in Westwood, Brentwood, Beverly Hills, and Bel Air as well. And it is believed that the flyers and the overpass incidents are connected. They listed the same website linking to a hate group.
We now know who's responsible for projecting this vile message of hate on the side of a football stadium last weekend that drew national attention. The same message, "Kanye is right about the Jews," was also projected on a building in downtown Jacksonville.
We were the people that Moses freed. And when we talk about, have you heard black people talk about 400 years of slavery? African Americans are actually Jew also. Let's say you don't call black people Jew, right? If everyone can say, hey, you can't point out this fact, or we're gonna say you're anti-Semitic and we're gonna call you Hitler, I feel that there has to be at least 1% of safeguarding the ability to screw the artist based on saying it's anti-Semitic by pointing out that they just so happen to all be Jewish. Racism, that's too wide of a term. It's genocide and population control that black people are in today in America that is promoted by the music and the media that black people make that Jewish record labels get paid off of.
Millions of African Americans believe that they are the real Jews of the Bible, that there has been a tremendous conspiracy to try to convince them that the people who are ostensibly Jews today are in fact, quote-unquote, fake Jews, and that they as African Americans have been robbed of their true birthright. This is an especially virulent, especially intense form of racism that really has no parallel anywhere else on planet Earth. The people of China may kind of resent the Japanese for what happened in World War II, but they're not going around saying, hey, we, the Chinese, are really secretly the real Japanese people, whereas the inhabitants of the Japanese islands are fake Japanese people. They're imposters who've somehow taken... No. You have to recognize the depth and gravity of this propaganda claim. I did download a copy of the particular racist and anti-Semitic book endorsed by Kyrie Irving. I downloaded it as a free sample from Amazon. In any other context, I realize how difficult this would be to believe. But I'd like to say to you, with all due seriousness, that the particular racist views being espoused, being epitomized by Kanye West and Kyrie Irving are actually much worse than Aryan race theory. They are actually more dangerous than Nazism or neo-Nazism. Nobody else on the internet is going to say this to you, and nobody else has the scholarly background to back it up. Let me tell you right now what the difference between Aryan and Semite is. This difference that the right-wingers and the racists all make such a big deal out of, that they exaggerate the historical significance out of. What is the difference between the Semitic peoples and the so-called Aryans? In ancient times, it was the difference between the worshippers of Marduk in Babylon and the followers of Zoroastrianism in Persia. It was the difference between Babylonians, who were Semitic, and Persians, who were Aryan. Today, in the modern world, can you perceive the racial difference between Iraqis and Iranians? It's an unbelievably intense racial rivalry that has nothing to do with and provides no legitimate justification for the anti-Semitism of Germans, the hatred of Germans against Jews in 19th century Europe. But I've made other YouTube videos about this, explaining how white Europeans rediscovering the history of the exotic Near East and the history of India, how it inspired a whole bunch of kind of reevaluations of what the history of ethnicity meant in Europe and then what it was supposed to mean for the future. As bad and evil and wrong as it may be for Germans and neo-Nazis and white supremacists today to exaggerate the significance of this distinction between Iraqi and Iranian, it's actually much worse for black people in America today to believe that they are the real Jews, and that people like myself and people like Barbara Streisand and people like Jerry Seinfeld are actually imposters pretending to be them. It would be, in short, much more fucked up if Adolf Hitler's reason for wanting to exterminate the Jews was that he had the belief that he was himself truly Jewish and that the German people were really the people liberated by Moses, whereas the Jews were imposters.
When Abraham was 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram here, and said to him, I am El Shaddai, walk in my ways and be blameless. I will establish my covenant between me and you, and I will make you exceedingly numerous. The Hebrew is Hithalech lefanai v'hiyeh tamim. It means something like this, really. If you walk around in front of my face, this is God speaking, you will be innocent. You will be blameless. In the Hebrew Bible, until the last book, the last chapter of the last book, in Daniel chapter 12, there is a reference to a world to come or perhaps a resurrection. But that's the only reference that is clear in the entire Hebrew Bible to something that happens to us after death that is related to our behavior in life. That is, that there is no sense in the Hebrew Bible of punishment in hell or reward in heaven. In the Hebrew Bible, punishment and reward is all meted out in this world. After you die in the Hebrew Bible, you go to a place called Sheol. It means something like the place of question. Everyone goes to the same place. Evil people go, righteous people go. There is no sense of heaven and hell in terms of punishment in an afterlife. That comes into the world of the Near East only at the very end of the Second Temple period, at the end, very end, and after the canonization or the formation of the Hebrew Bible. The gods in the ancient Near East protected the people who protected the gods. There was a symbiotic relationship. If you weren't good to the gods wouldn't be good to you. Here is a monotheistic image or notion of God, and God is saying to Abraham, you do the right thing and you will be rewarded. Okay, so there is a covenant covenantal relationship between God and a particular family. The sign of the covenant is circumcision, and that is the way it works for many generations. And that community that is called Israel now, Israel is a term not in traditional Jewish lore and in the biblical world. It doesn't mean the modern state of Israel, it means the people of Israel or the children of Israel. Those are the descendants of Abraham through the 12 tribes, the 12 sons of Jacob, and a number of other communities that joined them when they left in the Exodus. On the third new moon, after the Israelites, that is Israel, had gone forth from the land of Egypt, Moses went up to God. The Lord called him from the mountain, saying, "Thus shall you say to the house of Jacob, and declare to the children of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. Now then, if you will obey me conscientiously and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples of the earth. Of all the peoples, for all the earth is mine. And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." And this becomes a national literature through which, directly or indirectly, all three families of monotheism understand their origin. This story, in one way or another, is understood to be the foundational story of all three religious traditions. That's the first story that I'm telling you. Now I'm going to tell you a different story. A story about how religion functioned in the ancient Near East. All the various groups. So for example, the Moabites had a god named Chemosh. The Ammonites had a god named Milcom. The Philistines had a god named Dagon. The Tyrians from Tsur had a goddess named Ashtoreth. The Babylonians, Marduk. And the Israelites had a god as well. The Israelites had a god at one point that was no more powerful than the gods of the neighboring peoples. And that god had a name, because all the gods had a name. Why did a god have to have a name? Because when you made an offering to the god, you wanted to make sure that your god got to smell the sweet aroma of the offering and not somebody else's god. Because in the old polytheistic system of the ancient Near East, there was a symbiotic relationship between the gods and the people. The gods needed the people as much as the people needed the gods. The gods were more powerful, but they needed to be fed by the people. How do we know this? Well, there's vestiges of it even in the Bible. But if you know the Gilgamesh epic, you know the Noah story in the Gilgamesh epic, or the flood story in the Gilgamesh epic, the gods destroyed humanity on earth. But it was a little excessive, because once people were destroyed, the gods had nobody to feed them. And so when the Noah character, do you know his name in the Gilgamesh epic? Yes, Utnapishtim. When he made it to the island and he offered an offering of thanksgiving, the image that is in that book is phenomenal. It says the gods flew around the smoke of the sacrifice like flies because they were so hungry, because they hadn't been fed for such a long period of time.
This is a screenshot of someone in the audience, one of many, many people who wrote it in the audience, who believes it's a self-evident fact that biblical scripture describes Moses, King David, Solomon, and many other ancient Jewish characters as ethnically African black. That he believes the Bible itself contains evidence that the people of ancient Israel, the descendants of Abraham, the blood relations of Jesus, that they resembled Kanye West, that they resembled the particular Africans who were enslaved and trafficked to North America, that they didn't resemble me at all. Don't laugh.
In Slate, they have a piece on .com. Santa Claus should not be a white man anymore. And when I saw this headline, I kind of laughed, and I said, oh, this is so ridiculous. Yet another person claiming it's racist to have a white Santa, you know? And by the way, for all you kids watching at home, Santa just is white, but this person is just arguing that maybe we should also have a black Santa. But, you know, Santa is what he is, and just so you know, we're just debating this.
Don't laugh. This is the basis for a very real and ongoing race war. I know it's preposterous when Kanye West describes his own life as being in danger. Other people will lose their lives. After I make this video, quite possibly my life will be in danger, because there are people out there even crazier, even more convinced of this crazy theory than Nathaniel Gomez, who wrote this comment. Look at the second sentence here, or the second sentence fragment. He refers to it as a self-evident fact that the ancient city of Ur was located in Africa. I wish I had an audience erudite enough that I could do a stand-up comedy routine on this. There are mysteries. There are unresolved questions left over from the ancient world. But the geographic location of Ur is not one of them. Archaeology, and let's be clear, archaeology includes exhuming corpses. It includes the examination of human remains and DNA testing on human remains. There is absolutely no doubt in any historian's mind of where the ancient city of Ur was, who lived there, what language they spoke. This is the most thoroughly researched and proven matter in the history of the world. If you want to present a wacky theory about who the indigenous people of Ontario were 3,000 years ago, well, there isn't all that much archaeology for you to contend with. But Ur, ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Iraq, ancient Iran, however you want to put it, the ancient Fertile Crescent, what's now Turkey. It is mind-blowing to see that we're now up against people who are just as passionate and just as crazy as Kanye West, but who are considerably more dangerous, who have become convinced that Ur was in Africa, and that the people being described as liberated by Moses were, therefore, black Africans. Look at Genesis 2:10 to 2:17. The geography of where all those myths transpired, where those rivers were, etc., is well established by irrefutable evidence. Archaeology, DNA testing, so on and so forth. Although a myth remains a myth, much the same. Now do a Google image search for map Abraham sojourn. Why do you suppose none of those images agree with the intentionally misleading propaganda you're repeating here as if it were fact? You are a victim of a conspiracy as laughable as flat earth science, and you deserve to be laughed at in your turn, Nathaniel. When Rome was at war with Carthage, what did the Carthaginians look like? What was the ethnicity and language of the people all along the north coast of Africa at that time? There's a huge amount of evidence, but one, you've been lied to about it, and two, you are now telling the same lies to others, presumably because it makes you feel special, just like the flat earthers. I have seen the book that's now linked especially to the name of Kyrie Irving. This is a dangerous delusion. Human beings kill each other over good ideas just as often as bad ones. This idea, this ideology, oh, it's going to get people killed. I just don't happen to believe that Kanye West is one of them.